guys. Hey, I like to come in here and break things, so I'm gonna put that back. I didn't actually break it this time. It's gorgeous outside. The sun is out. It's very warm. We're in the double digits. I wore my spring coat today, which I love. And we have a really special guest on the show today. Okay, I'm gonna try and say his name. Not butcher it, but we did. You'll see actually when we get into the podcast, he has a really interesting story about his name. So his name is Elisa, which is awesome. My name is Lisa. It's Elisa Butoyi. I tried to put the W in there. Elisa, when you see this, let me know. Put a little comment. See how I said, grade me on how I said your name. But yeah, at the beginning, it's like almost like a W, he said. So like Butoyi. Anyway, he's from Rwanda, but he's here in our community in North Bay. He came here to go to Nipissing University to study, and now he is getting his master's in psychology. So we could have just talked for hours and hours, but he also has a podcast called the Man Up Talk podcast. Really cool. Check that out on YouTube. I saw it. I saw an episode, and he's really focusing on the psychology of men and just helping men kind of figure out what is being a man. It's like, what is being a woman? What is being a man? Like, what does that mean? With all these social media and all these kind of hints and social media telling them how they should be or what they should do, or it can be tough. It can be a tough world for a man or a woman out there right now. Anyway, so we have a really, really good conversation. Hang out for that. Before we get into that, though, we have to thank one of our major sponsors. That is Source for Sports over there on Fisher. Head on over there, and Paul and the gang can give you all of the expertise that they have to help you out in any sport that you need help in. Again, Source for Sports. We love you. Thank you so much for all your help. This is To North Bay with Love, and I'm Lisa Butoyi.
Sports aren't just what we do, they're who we are. Source for Sports North Bay is your advocate, your local support system, and your biggest fan. 1321 Fisher Street has grown from a place where knowledgeable experts can help you find exactly the gear you need, to the hotbed of team uniforms, apparel and fanwear, to a community stronghold for all the things that truly matter to you and your family's sports journey. We love helping you find your first pair of skates, as much as we relish supporting local leagues, teams, and athletes. Wherever your sports journey takes you, make sure you visit Source for Sports North Bay at 1321 Fisher Street so we can help you along your way.
I was wondering how you pronounced your name, because my name is Lisa, and your name is
Elisa.
And that is interesting because in our culture, here in Western culture,
yes,
I was like, because Ben said, hey, we have this person coming in, and he sent an email, and I said, great, what do we know about her? Because it's like okay, so tell us like the history of this.
Well, like I actually always get that. It's kind of funny because even when I noticed that like sometimes the bank, when they call me for something, and then like they'll be like, who are we talking to? I'm like, Elisa.
Is Elisa there?
And I'm like, so like I had to like put a Mr. on my name at the bank, so that when they call me, they know they're calling a Mr. Elisa.
Yeah.
Right. But so my name is a biblical name.
Okay.
And it's Elisha.
Elisha. Okay.
But in my language, it's Elisa.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so a difference. I love language. I'm English and French. Yeah. And then, okay, your last name is Butoyi?
Butoyi.
Okay, wait, how did you say it?
Butoyi.
Butoyi.
Yeah.
So it's like the B's kind of like, there's like an H in there. Kind of?
Something like a woo. It's a woo. There's like a W type of sound in there somewhere there.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, say one more time.
Butoyi.
Butoyi.
Yes.
I love it. Okay, I love language. Language is
pretty
awesome.
Good. And something cool about that name too.
Yeah.
So if you ever hear that name, know that that person is a twin, and they are the youngest of the twins.
Okay, what? I need more. What?
So I'm from Rwanda.
Yes.
And twins, and well, like things are changing now, but usually, so we don't have family names, but things are changing. We don't have last names, so you're given 2 names.
Okay,
right?
like a first name and a last name.
Yes, those are your names.
Those are your names. Nobody else has.
Nobody else has those names.
Okay,
right? So when you're twins, you already have 2 of your name. Like you already have 1 of your name. So Butoyi, and that's irregardless of whether you're a girl or a boy.
Okay.
It's if you were the last.
Yeah.
Then your name is Butoyi.
Oh.
If you were, which means the youngest of twins. And if you were the first, your name is Bukuru, which means the elder.
Of the twin.
Exactly.
So wait, so does that mean you're a twin?
I am a twin, yes.
You have a twin brother or sister?
I do have a twin brother.
Oh my gosh. Are you guys identical?
No, I'm too good to look like him.
You're like, no, of course not. Excuse me.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Mm-hmm. I love that. So, okay, you are from Rwanda.
Yeah.
You became a Canadian citizen in 2023.
Yes.
But you came here to study.
Correct.
Okay, tell us a bit about that.
Oh, well, it's...
like, why North Bay, maybe, first of all, too? Like, out of all the places.
Why North Bay? So, because I had 2 scholarships, one in Guelph, one in North Bay at Nipsey University, and I chose Nipsey University because city-wise, it's too close. Guelph is too close to the city.
Yeah,
right?
Guelph is big. Yeah,
exactly.
It's
And like as much as I love the city, I'm all of like quiet. Right.
Yeah.
I like my quiet. I will go to the city. I will visit. And I think one of the things so when I went to Toronto the first time, and when I came back, people ask me, like, how do you feel about Toronto? And I'm like, I could not find my oxygen.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Like that, like the place is like, like I don't like sharing my oxygen.
No.
And sometimes some of that oxygen is like not even clean. So I'm like, I want my oxygen to myself.
Yeah, not down in the subway.
Exactly.
Elisa, I feel the same way. I grew up 4 hours north of here in a city called Timmins, and spent my whole childhood outside, like a lot of outside stuff. And it was all woods, forests, like bush. And I did the same thing. I went to school in Oakville, just outside of Toronto, but I always thought everyone was going left and I was going right. You know what I mean? I couldn't get into my groove. It just wasn't, it was too much. It was too much.
Exactly.
Busy everywhere, all the time. It doesn't matter. It could be a Tuesday afternoon. Tons of people all over the place. Yeah, I couldn't do it. I like small.
Oh, yeah. So, came here. And I know I went to Nipsey University for my undergrad. I did psychology at Nipsey, and when I was done, I know my friends were like, okay, when are you going to move? Like, when is the move? And at that time, I had already decided that North Bay was going to be my home because I loved North Bay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I made friends, like, right away. Right? I had friends that I would consider family away from home because, and here's the thing, I was the first from my family to come here. Right, I didn't have any family. Like I have friends in like that go to like, I have friends that go to Guelph to Toronto University. So I spent some time down there some of the weekends in my earlier years here. But I was the first that came here. So like, and being able to make friends that I actually began to consider family.
Right.
And because of how like North Bay is North Bay is big but small.
Yeah.
Like it's weird, and I know my partner always says this. So like she lives in Ottawa, and sometimes we'll go to the grocery store when she comes here.
Yeah.
And then like 3 or 4 people say hi to me. She's like,
what?
How do you even know these people?
How do you know them? Yeah.
I'm like, wow, like it's North Bay.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is like and I had already begun to build a community of friends. I had already started to pick up, like my own like location in terms of like my own identity within a community, right? And my own, personality within a community. And I was like, yeah, North Bay it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So okay. So what's going to happen? Because your partner's still in Ottawa.
Yeah. Well,
but she's like, when are you coming here? And you're like, no.
That is a big conversation that may not want to be had on a podcast.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yes.
Okay. We'll have you back in a few months after you guys figure that out. And then we can have a podcast about that.
Exactly.
So when I was kind of creeping you, just reading up on you.
Yes.
There was a Bay Today article that was really neat. And there was a quote in there that I loved that you said. You said, I am deeply passionate about fostering unity and diversity, striving to bring people and culture together. Explain yourself, Elisa.
Well, it is a huge passion for me outside of my work and sometimes inside of my work, the work that I do. And one of the things I realized, and one of the things I've grown to learn, because I was born in Tanzania, and that was and this is where people get confused about where I am from. Okay. So my parents are originally from Rwanda.
Okay.
I was born in Tanzania. It was during the Rwandan genocide.
Oh, okay.
So I was born in Tanzania. We went back to Rwanda, and then we left again. And then we went to Malawi, and then we went to Mozambique, went to Zimbabwe, and then went to Malawi again. And now my family are in Mozambique.
Wow.
So sometimes people will ask me, and I'm like, I'm from Malawi. And some people will ask me, and I'm like, I'm from Tanzania. Yeah. I was born in Tanzania, right? Because there was a lot of movement up until like when I was like, I think, my last move would have been like, I spent some time in refugee camps up until when I was maybe 12.
Wow.
Right. And when with that background, you learn to appreciate the importance of community, right? And you learn to appreciate, the importance of togetherness. Because I'll tell you this, like a majority of these refugee camps that I lived in, there's different people. You have Rwandese, you have Congolese, you have Burundis, you have Somalis, you have Ethiopians, right? You have people from all sorts of places. And it's kind of funny that, now I've lost some of my languages, but I could speak 7 languages fluently.
No.
Right? And then, now I've lost some of them, and I can still speak fluently at least 4 of them.
That's incredible.
Right? Wow. And that's my background, where I've learned to really appreciate the importance of cultural integration and community building, and this peace on togetherness. And when I came here, because I was, to some extent, I was very isolated from my family, right? And North Bay, at the time, so you're looking at 2017, and I know when I came here, I remember my first class. It was a biology, an intro to biology class. And I turned my head to look around. It was at least like 100 and something students in there, and I was the only black student in it.
Yeah,
and it was like, wow. So I look around and I'm like, wow, right?
Yeah.
And at the time, and even my years leading to now with what I'm doing, is there's this piece on how people are isolated, right? Both between and within, regardless of your cultural background, people are very isolated, and it is hurting the community. That's what I think, right? Like that's my way of thinking.
Well, and you were in the article, you were talking about how COVID really just drove that home, right?
Exactly.
And because now all of a sudden we didn't have a choice, we had to be isolated. And perhaps for some people who are a little more introverted and who maybe don't want to have to make that effort to go out, or are really happy to be by themselves. It was fun and it was good. But then now that the world's kind of come back, I even know some people who, and I would say even myself too, at this point, I think some of it's that I'm just older now. I'm just getting old. By 3:00, I'm done. But like, just to go out and do things, right? And to really create these experiences and create these things, like it's just not as top of mind, I guess, for people. Exactly. It's easy to kind of stay in our own little world.
Exactly. And as people, the other pieces, as people, naturally, we're meant to have relationships.
Yes.
Right? We're meant to meet other people. We're meant to interact with other people. Yeah. Like, naturally, we're not creatures of isolation.
No.
right? We're creatures of connection, right? And making relationships and what's or not. So,
which you could see probably, I mean, studying mental health, in your studies, that COVID really brought that out too in a lot of people. It wasn't only just, physically isolating, but mentally as well.
Oh, yeah.
Created some issues,
a lot of issues. And actually, speaking of issues, like in the past 3 years, I saw community counseling. One of my roles is I facilitate the intimate, the PAR program, so the Partner Assault Response Program. It's a court-mandated program for men convicted of intimate partner violence or domestic violence. And during COVID, that went through the roof.
That blew up.
Right? And a lot of it is not having that time away to be able to work through things, right? Because sometimes we just need time to work through things. We just need time to reflect. We just need time to process information. And sometimes, given that space, if you're not given that time to work through your own issues, it sometimes comes out not in the best way. And I think people even, and one of the struggles is that you would have, partners, some of the partners that forced to stay in abusive relationships because what? Right? You have nowhere else to go. It's like, if I leave, where do I go?
Where do I go? Yeah. You're on the street. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you mentioned, the counseling.
Yes.
So you graduated in 2021 from Nipissing?
Yep.
With what? What did you study?
With a batch, with honors and specialization in psychology.
Okay.
And a major in biology.
And now you're working on your master's?
Yes.
In arts and counseling psychology?
Correct.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what do you love about psychology? Like, what fuels you about it? Like,
human
what is
behavior.
it that human behavior? Yeah, I find human behavior really interesting too. Maybe that's why I watch Dateline all the time.
Possibly.
I was just thinking the other day. I'm like, it was Dateline. I mean, it's all about murderers and stuff, and I'm like, I could murder someone. Like, I think humans,
oh yes,
we're capable of all kinds of things put into the right mix with the right little, like COVID, like you say. I mean, that it does something to the mind and it, but yeah, human behavior.
It is.
We like to think that we're something, that we're all just straight laced and stuff, but there's a lot going up here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like it's we're all capable of all sorts of things, and I like my clients. Some of the clients that I have would tell you about how I talk about in terms of like this idea of dark thoughts and how we are all capable of having dark thoughts, right? It's and one of the examples I like to share, and I like to tell them like having dark thoughts is more of like a risk management technique, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine. I like to give them an example. It's a very extreme example. Like if you're a parent, right? You have a very young baby, a toddler.
Yeah.
Right? A dark thought you could possibly have is like, I can drop this baby.
Yeah.
What if I drop this baby?
Yeah.
What if I drop them?
Yeah.
Right? And like that's a very dark thought. Like that's your baby.
For sure.
And you're thinking that I could what if I drop this baby? Right? And part of that is as a parent, now it brings like your body and your mind, they are all propelling themselves to be like, this is a possibility.
Yeah.
Now your job is to make sure it doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's like that, okay, I could drop this baby.
Yeah.
It's a possibility. Now you make sure when you hold that baby, you hold the baby like you can.
Yeah.
You can. It's possible. And if you hold the baby, you make sure it's not over an age, something that has some ages to it.
Yep, exactly.
If you hold the baby,
or hot, boiling water, right? You got it. Yeah.
Exactly. So you will assess and you're doing some risk assessment, and that's part of having those dark thoughts that, I am capable of doing this, right?
Yeah.
And now the job is like, okay, I have to make sure I don't do this.
Right.
Right? We all have dark thoughts. Like I think even the very best of us, as much as we would like to avoid it, but
yeah, they're there.
We have.
That's part of us. Yeah, we have to have the light and the dark, right?
Exactly.
So, do you love working with a certain age group?
Yes. Yes, I am. I'm not so big with children.
Okay.
And as much as I find them intriguing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I have I think he's about 8 months, 9 months nephew that I'm watching grow.
Okay.
I have some nephews, but I didn't get to see them grow.
Oh,
but this one I actually get to see him do his thingy and develop and what's so not, and it's intriguing. Like I'm loving it and I'm liking it, but I tend to stay, maybe youth around 16.
Okay.
16 and going up, preferably, because below that things are a bit complicated.
Yeah.
Right. And with right now, and actually one of the things I don't like to work about like some of the younger ones is because they can outsmart you very easily.
Yeah, they can.
Like the access to knowledge and information that they have. Like, it's like, they already know everything. Like, what am I going to...
I know. And kids just say it how it is, too, sometimes, right? They'll just, like, say something. You're like, what? That's our inside voice. What are you doing? They're just so literal.
Exactly.
I know. I was on a cruise one time, and the guy, we were going to see a show, and all the kids were up at the front because it was a magic show. And the next thing coming up, he couldn't have the kids in the front row, and he was saying like, okay, kids, you got to move back. You got to move back now. There you go. And no one was paying attention, and their parents are, having drinks and whatever. And so finally he said, really, I always thought this was funny. He said in the microphone, he was like, I really like kids. I couldn't eat a whole one, but I like them. And then all the parents were like, oh, okay, let's just get back here. Move. This guy's like weird. Like, what's going on? So I know. I feel the same way. It's like, I love them, and then it's like, okay, bye. Let's go.
Exactly.
So talking about like community, creating that connection through community. It's funny because I was telling my mom a little bit about who I was going to speak to today and what we were talking about. And where I grew up in Timmins, there was probably a 3 to 4 block radius. I knew everyone's parents' names by their first name. They knew my name. They knew my parents' names. They knew our phone numbers. I knew their phone numbers. Any day after school, if I came home and I forgot my key, there were 15 houses. I could go knock on the door and be like, hey, hey, Mrs. Jackson, hey, Mrs. Bick, hey, Mrs. Laneville, I forgot my key. And they'd be like, yeah, come on in, go to the fridge, get yourself something to eat. And obviously, it's a different world now.
Yes.
Or is it? I don't know. Again, I don't have kids, so I can't really, but I do know that we definitely don't talk to our neighbors.
No.
Like we used to.
No.
Perhaps, in certain little sections. I won't say never. Like, I'm sure there are neighborhoods that are still like that, but very far and few between.
Yes.
So what would you love to see in terms of like, I don't know, what would your advice be in terms of like creating that community? Like how to knock on your neighbor's door or like, like how do we create that?
On a macro level, that's challenging. Like that's, because of, current working systems, right? Okay. And one of the things I ask people to reflect on is this piece this thing called NIMBYism. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No.
It's I think it translates to not in my backyard.
Oh.
So
okay.
Where it's like, if it's not in my backyard, it's not my problem. It's not mine to worry about. Not in my backyard. Right? Like if it's happening in the neighbor's backyard, that's not my backyard, so I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Right. So like it's one thing I ask people to reflect on, because I think with that approach, everyone is more concerned about their well-being. Right? It's like, if it's your concern, it's not my concern. I don't have to worry about it. And it's I do. There's pieces, because let's say, for example, my clients might watch this and be like, why are you being a hypocrite? Because sometimes I tell my clients to be like, okay, just which ones are your concerns?
Right, exactly.
Know your land.
Kind of like
right?
choose your battles.
Choose your battles, right? Yeah. And this is different, right? Because this is not about cognitions and emotions and whatsoever. But this is just about general, not general, but like this is about community wellness.
Yeah.
Right. It's not about individual wellness. Community wellness really. It's about knowing how safe your friend or your neighbor is in their own lane. Right? Just that awareness, right? Yeah. Being like, okay, are they doing well? Are they well? And what's not? And this piece, and because we are we are divided, right? Like it's what's happening right now. Like our current systems, they are, like they are pushing us apart in some ways, in some forms, and depending on the things that we believe in, our experiences, the things we've been through, and what's or not. But sometimes it's just being able to reflect on that and being able to want like this that piece on like treat others the way you want to be treated. The other day I heard someone say that's the golden rule, is that treat others the way you want to be treated. The platinum rule, the Colin Platinum rule says, treat others treat others the way they want to be treated.
Yes, they want to be treated. Yeah,
right. And it's that piece of being able to reflect on okay, like it's, and I know my neighbors, and I think we've my neighbors used to have a snowblower, and we didn't. Yeah. And this one time we had to be like, okay, we need to see if we can make a deal with them. Be like, okay, like we got to talk about this, right? Yeah. And we're like, okay, we went over and we talked like, okay, could we use your snowblower? And they're like, oh yeah, right. So it's being able to take that step, right? Where it's like, because everyone is hesitant to take that step.
It's that fear.
Exactly.
And where I just wonder, I wonder where that fear comes from, or how it, how it's crept in.
It's possibly something to do with individual experiences, right?
Yeah.
And people being comfortable in their own spaces, right? In their own locations, right? And sometimes it's like for me the way I was raised, right? Like I want to know my neighbors. That's the way I was raised.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
I want to know my neighbors, right? But there's people who that's not the way they were raised, right? Yeah. It's like, okay, I just go do my business, come back home, and off I go into my house and what's or not. And I think like things change, and I think now I think. I'm seeing a change. I'll say this.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Right. I'm seeing a change in terms of like how people interact and relate with each other. I think there's a big shift in terms of people realizing that maybe this merit to this idea of like maybe checking in on your neighbor, right? Yeah. Because you never know. You never know when you would need their help. You never know when they will need your help.
It's time to Toyota at North Bay Toyota. Attention truck lovers. Have you been Tundra struck? The powerful and dependable Toyota Tundra is the new definition of grit. Ask us about amazing lease deals on a 2025 Tundra Double Cab SR 4-wheel drive and experience ingenious levels of capability, technology, and refinement. Or maybe you're an SUV lover? Take advantage of a limited shipment of 2025 RAV4s and discover the perfect blend of style, comfort, and efficiency in a compact SUV that ignites your desire to explore. Right now, get excellent lease deals on the Toyota RAV4 LE all-wheel drive and more. It's time to Toyota at North Bay Toyota, 640 McEwen, or online at northbaytoyota.com for details.
Do you think COVID, in a weird way, helped that?
Oh, yes.
Because people all of a sudden were like, I actually really do like people. Yes. And I like to speak with people and be around them, and I need them. And so,
You'd be surprised, but yes, it did.
Yeah.
Right? Because there was also the piece that people were forced to stay in their own homes. And when it comes to socialization and kids playing together, people had to like use their like close circles. Let's say, for example, your neighbor, right? You had to, like, if you were to have some type of a social life, it had to be your neighbor, your neighbor's children, your neighbor's partner. People would have barbecues together, right? Because now they are forced into this piece. Yeah. And actually, I just remembered one of the things that I think maybe people should reflect on and maybe think about, maybe including a suggestion that I would like to make to try and have friends from multiple locations. What do I mean by that? Like, just don't have friends from work.
Right.
Like I was talking to someone the other day. I have friends from work. I have friends from my church. I have friends from school. I have friends that I play soccer with. I have friends. I have friends that I have met online.
Yeah.
I have friends with with my other daily activities that I do.
Yeah.
And these people don't know each other. Some of them know each other, but majority of them, they don't know each other. And I think being able to have a larger circle of friends is so important for you in terms of community building, because we tend to just have a very small and significant, a very small friends, 2 friends. These are my friends. I have barbecues with them. These are my friends that I hang out with them. And it denies us the opportunity to actually explore other possible and potential friendships that can expand our social circle and actually open us to a larger community to experience more about life that maybe we may not ever be able to experience. One of the things I've come to realize is that people are exhausting their friendships.
Yeah.
Right? You may have 1 friend or 2 friends, and you want this friend to satisfy all your
your needs,
expectations.
Yeah.
And that's just exhausting.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having 1 friend that I will talk about work, I'll talk about school, I'll talk about my church stuff, I'll talk about my soccer stuff. That is a lot.
Yeah, it's like having a romantic partner that you expect to have everything, what am I trying to say? Just be everything to you and take care of all of those different things for you and be everything, your emotional support and your social support and everything. You just can't do it. Yeah, you'll have burnout for sure.
It is challenging.
Yeah, and I think also too, it's funny when you were talking about that because I'm thinking, okay, I really do. I do have friends in many different areas, and those friends don't sometimes I see these ones, sometimes,
Yeah.
And that also is good because if you just have 1 or 2 and it's just the 3 of you, let's say all the time, you can be, pretty biased in what you're thinking. And
Yes.
You can be pretty closed out to the possibilities. But if you meet somebody from a totally different country or a different culture or something, you can kind of bring that to the different places you go and kind of say, oh, I know somebody from here, or oh, that's not actually true because I just spoke with somebody who, it just, it opens you up to have just way more, like you say, way more of an experience in your community, which is really cool.
Exactly. And that piece speaks to your question around, what do you think about this piece and how can people go about this piece and, community building and this togetherness and this really, learning, because I think we're all learning, right? I came here to learn. I am learning. I'm still learning. Some people somewhere are still learning about me. Who knows? But right, it's that piece of just continued learning about each other, our differences, our similarities, and all these other things. And being able to one of the biggest things I think what you just mentioned is this piece of being able to say no, that's not true.
Right. Yeah.
And being able to call that out.
Exactly.
Right?
Because you have the knowledge you've spoken to somebody and you've walked in their shoes or you've had an experience with them, right? And that also gets rid of the fear.
Exactly.
I think the more you learn about somebody and find out, wait, they're not going to eat me, they're not going to hurt me, or you know what I mean?
Yes.
You start to just figure out we're all just human beings on this earth.
Oh, yeah.
Who want to be loved and cared for and have fun. Yeah.
I just actually remembered something very funny. I picked up a hitchhiker in Deep River. I had
Elisa. No way. My dad hitchhiked all the way, all the time. But this was back in the 70s, right? But now, when was this? Just recently?
So it was last year. So I was in Ottawa to see my partner and my brother and his family. Anyways, and I was coming back, and there was a hitchhiker in Deep River, and it was raining. So I'm driving, and I saw them, and I just turned around. Right, I picked up this guy, and then we talked. So he had hitchhiked from out east, and he was going to British Columbia to someplace called Kenora.
Yeah.
Kenora?
Wow.
Anyways, so I pick him up, and then on the way, and I'm like, I'm like, okay, so, what do you plan to do? Like, are you hitchhiking again in North Bay? It's like, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm like, oh, do you want to stop by my house to grab something to eat? And then you can go back on the road. He's like, yeah, that's okay. I'm
He's like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah, that's okay. I'm like, well, let's go. So I pick up the phone, well on the way, right? I pick up the phone. I call my roommates at home and I'm like, I don't have time, but if someone is home, can you prepare something to eat? And I'm like, I have a guest that's coming with me. And my roommate like, okay. So I come home, my roommates have prepared something to eat. So we sit down and we're about to eat, and after we eat, and this guy is about to leave, and my roommates found out that he was a hitchhiker, and they were all like, "You did what?
What?" But that's normal for you. Like, is that something that you grew up? Like, is that
like it's something that, like, I grew up seeing people do, like, where you just you pick up people on the road, especially hitchhikers and what's so on. So and when I told this story to one of my close friends' mom here in North Bay, she was like, "No, you did not do that.
I know.
Don't ever do that again."
And I wish it was a world where we could.
Yep.
Especially, I mean, being a woman too, like, I just never would. But anyways, but I feel bad because I see them in the summer and I'm like, it could be 30 degrees outside or it's pouring rain. Yep. And I'm like, I wish I could give you a ride, but it's the Dateline. I'm watching too much Dateline. Exactly. I'm going to end up in the trunk with some duct tape.
There's no fears. But
shoot, but that's an awesome story. I love that story. Was he surprised? The hitchhiker? Was he kind of like, is this actually happening?
He was surprised. And that's the funny thing is like, well, you're going to bring me to your house?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, let's go.
You need some food. You've been hitchhiking. That's a long way from out east here.
I know. I was like, come with me. Let's go.
Dang, man, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
So you have a podcast.
Yes.
How long? Okay, it's called The Man Up Talk.
Yes.
You can find it. I found you on YouTube.
Yes.
And the clip that I saw was you with some of your friends.
Yes.
And you were talking about, which I love,
yes.
how important women are in your lives.
Yes.
And how important women are just generally.
Yes.
I love that. Like what is the main focus on your podcast? Like the man up. So is it like to man up about things, or like how do you? Because that could have different meanings,
yes.
right? Like man up and stop crying.
Yes.
Or is it like man up and let's be these men to support everybody in our lives?
The second one.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
It's and that's that when I was thinking about a name for my podcast and it's a podcast. I've slowed down on recording and I need to pick up because I just had a few things I need to pick up some other places. But yeah, the second one on this piece of the term carries and I know some of my friends will call me your podcast called The Man Up, and what you're saying, you're contradicting yourself. Like, what exactly do you want us to do?
Right.
Like, what exactly do you want us to do?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, okay, here's the thing. Let's slow down.
Yeah.
Right. Slow down, and this is what I'm trying to work through. Right. This piece around and. Because when we look at historically, right, in terms of where that word may have been derived from, right? Because we're talking about courage, we're talking about being brave, right? We're talking about responsibility, we're talking about accountability, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And those are actually and it's not just about that. That's not just qualities or characteristics that make a man, successful, important, whatsoever. Like any human. I
was going to say, man or woman. We should all have that. Integrity, accountability for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we look at historical context in terms of when elders taught a boy to, right?
Yeah.
When it was be brave.
Yeah.
Be responsible.
Yeah.
All these other things, right?
Yeah.
And what's happening is that there's been a changing and the messaging and the messages around how do we socialize masculinity? What does that look like, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to there's for example. Responsibility and accountability. I talk a lot about this in my work with men convicted of intimate partner violence, right? Because there's that lacking piece of responsibility and accountability, right? Because with that comes a lot of reflective process, right? Being able to reflect, right now you have to reflect, on your action. You have to reflect before you act. You have to reflect after you act, and all of that. Those are important pieces that make a man a man. Now, what the messaging I'm trying to send is like, okay, maybe at some point, right? At some point, and this is and this is maybe something that I might have lost at some point in our in our history, where men young men did not hang out with their fathers as much as they used to in the past.
Yeah.
Right? Because at a certain age, for a young man, men would start to bring them out to hunt. Men would start bring them out to go to the shop.
Right.
Right? Depending on what spirituality your family had, at a certain age, your fathers, your grandparents, your uncles, will start to bring you out.
Yeah.
So you would go with them and you would learn how to be a man, how to be a responsible man, how to be accountable, how to be brave, right? How to be courageous and all these other things. But now, right, we don't have that.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have that anymore. So what happens is that these young men are having to find that out for themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And what they are being exposed to.
I was going to say, where are they finding this out?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's no other base place, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's this piece okay, let's say for example, and we let's for example, let's talk about suicide, right? If you tell a man to man up, that to them could mean just end it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Just end it.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, you could find a better way to communicate that, right? To communicate, to help them work through their struggles without going through with that, right? So that's the piece is okay, be responsible, be accountable. But how can you be responsible and accountable in a healthy and adaptive way for you? That's not right. That's not ending you I work with, I've worked with, men as young as 19.
Yeah.
Right? And you think you're 19 years old. Right? And one of the things that some of these young men struggle with is once you've made your way into jail, that's big. That's big.
Yeah.
That is very significant.
Yeah.
After that, right? After that, you have to where you either what's the purpose of it anyways?
Right.
I'll never be able to have a life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because yes, you do have a criminal record. Right? For some of these young men, it's this is it.
That's it. So that's the path I'm going to follow, and I'm just going to continue that behavior.
Exactly.
And end up here time and time again.
Exactly.
Or do I want to man up and change it?
Exactly.
Right? Do you find that's the other thing too? Because you could say, I think it's hard to be a man right now. Not that I would know because I'm not a man, but just the the culture that we're in right now. I feel like there could be. I think it's a bit confusing, right? Because it's we've had this massive movement of women kind of coming up to the forefront, and then of course the Me Too movement in 2018 now anyway, which needed to happen. But sometimes the pendulum can swing all the way to one side and then not. And so, I feel like the key component here is just the aggression and the anger, maybe. Do you find that there's a lot, you're dealing with that in these young men in terms of they're getting maybe a message to man up or to, to not be emotional or the only emotion that they can show is aggression or is, if you have a problem, fight it out. If you have a problem, you're yelling it out. There's violence. And so I don't know, is it maybe just allowing them or giving them permission or just, letting them know it's okay to have other feelings and just because you're crying or just because you're upset about something or ashamed about something, humans have all of those things. We're all human. Just because you're a man, you can cry. You cry. It's, I don't know. I don't know if that's something you encounter too a lot of with young men is just figuring out how to show their emotions.
Well,
use those feelings.
Exactly. And that's that's one of the, that's one of the struggles in terms of what some of these younger men are being fed in terms, in terms of. And I think it's both an important piece is on the piece of being able to socially regulate and emotionally regulate.
Right.
Right. Being able, and I think it's one of the struggles where, men are not able to resolve conflict.
Yeah.
Like conflict resolution it's become very, very hard, right for men. And this is not just like men and women, like younger men and younger women. It's also like even younger men and other younger men, right? Being able to work through a conflict without aggression, right? And the other piece is on part of it. There's trauma and what's on, but another piece is control. Right, in terms of like the messages that are being said, like that are being sent to this man, is this piece on taking your power, taking your control, right? Being the man, because that's what men are associating with being a man, right? Is being in control, right? And the moment you realize that you don't have that control, right? And because these men are not learning how to process that. Right. So let's say, for example, if your girlfriend decides to break up with you. Yeah. Right? It's like, oh, what? What? Yeah. Like what? Like, why would you break up with me? Yeah. Like, so because like that piece just feels like, oh, like I'm in control here. Right. You don't get to decide to break up with me. Yeah. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And some of this messaging is this piece on being able to control, or being able, like, for you to be a man, you have to be the one, like, you have to be the one, making the decisions. That's right. Deciding where things go, and all those other pieces. And then when it comes to, okay, now I don't have control over that anymore. What, like, like, it's like, who are you? Yeah. Am I a man? Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like, am I a man? And the other piece comes on how men, as men, we socialize. What's that like? Right? Like, it's that piece. And I talk to guys, like, being like, when you're having that conversation with another man, when something like this happens, or like when, and with control, with control for men right now, it's not just like intimate partners. Some of it is control to do with just their life. Yeah. Right? Yep. Their general life, where they feel like things are going out of control. Like, their job, maybe they lose their job. Maybe exactly. All of a sudden a buddy doesn't want to hang out anymore, or Right. Yeah. So now they can't figure that out, and they don't know how to work that out properly. And then what that comes out is, it's the aggression that you see, it's the anger that you see, and what's not. And I think, some researchers have argued that, maybe that's how men process, like, for some unknown reason, for men, right, all the emotions come out as anger, all the emotions come out as aggression, right? If you're ashamed, aggression, right? Yeah. If you're frustrated, aggression. If you're disappointed, aggression. Right. If you're like, yeah. And I love that you have this podcast, because I do believe that, men and women are different. I think we are different. We have different hormones. Our bodies work differently, but we each have beautiful things about us that the world needs, and that our communities need, and our families need, and even children need. Like, a mother is going to mother differently than a father's going to father. But both pieces are very necessary, very necessary, whether it's a boy or a girl. I think to raise a successful person, I think there's the yin and yang, right? Like, there's just different ways of doing it. But like you said, it's just getting to have those conversations, and just being open, and, knowing that conversations can happen. It doesn't have to always be yelling or whatever, and just allowing yourself to get help when you need it. Ask for help, and it doesn't mean that you're any less of a man. And that's the other piece, right? It's like it's when, like, it's that piece on, like, like, am I, like, if I ask for help, does that mean I'm a man? Yeah. Right? Does that make me weak? Does that make me weak? Yeah. Right? But sometimes just realizing that that in itself is strength. Yeah. Like, for someone to ask for help, that takes a lot of courage. Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to be brave for you to, like, huge. For you to be like, I need help. Yeah. And what a beautiful example to all the other men in your life. You know what I mean? To anybody or anyone in your life, to just say, like, I need help, and I got it. Yeah. That is strength right there. It's smart. Yeah. Right. I need help, and men don't see it that way, right? And it also comes down to how we are socializing this idea of asking for help or seeking help, right? And part of it is not just. Part of it is not just like, I can't push it just to men only.
No,
it's the other thing is if a man asks you for help, what do you do, right? Because some of these we what's the word? We consider trivial, like we trivialize,
right?
Like when a man is asking for help, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Right. And depending on how we've socialized men asking for help, like if let's say, for example, this is the piece on how learning, right, and trauma plays an important factor when it comes to men being able to socially and emotionally regulate, is that if they're not taught that,
if they're
right?
not taught it, if
they're not taught that, that's really hard. And this is where, when you say, and actually it's kind of funny when you say that, a man and a woman, we all bring different things to, like even at the basic development of a child. And this is some research in neuroscience based when it comes to when we talk about relationships, and when we talk about social and emotional regulation, talk about attachment styles. And with attachment styles, right, like what happens is, well, the argument is that the primary caregiver, right, whoever that is, it can be ma'am, it can be dad, whoever that is, usually that's the primary attachment style. Now, what we've learned so far, this coming from research, what we've learned so far is that in the first year, usually the mom is connecting with a child from right brain to right brain, right? That child is absorbing the mom's, it's absorbing the mom's right brain information.
Yeah.
And as a child moves into, second year, third year, now they're taking on the left brain from their dad. And one of the things that, even one of the things that actually some men find challenging now is, so an example for when a man is transferring that left brain to the child's left brain is when you have when you see a man hold their baby up.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Right? And that baby is scared. But that's teaching the baby to take risks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the way they play with them.
Right? And so the way dads play with their babies is very scary.
Yeah.
But that's part of teaching that baby that, you can take risks.
It's so interesting because one of the podcasts that I love is Diary of a CEO, and he just had a guest on, and I can't remember her name. Anyway, she was. This is where I'm getting this from.
Yeah.
She was so interesting.
Yeah.
And she's a psychologist, and she's been studying this like children and raising children, and anyways, she talked about exactly that, and how a mother and a father both have very specific roles to play in raising a child, and for sure she said that's why we do skin on skin, like when a baby's born, and like to the mother and stuff. And she said in a lot of other cultures, a baby is worn usually on a mother's back or on tied in with
that's me
for like a year and a half, 2 years,
Yes.
that is regulating the baby to be soothed, to be calmed. They're upset. Okay, the mother's there. To be giving those things so that they can learn to regulate themselves. And then the father comes in and throws the baby up in the air and wrestles and put all this stuff. And that's exactly it. Like, it's different. And obviously we're kind of putting it in a nice little box right now. It's a little more complicated, but she said it was just a fascinating podcast. I was like, this is really cool. Like, it was just it just made a lot of sense. So
exactly right. So we are all teaching this child different things, right? And part of the left brain is decision making, right? And like some of the executive functioning, like problem solving, right? And being able to risk manage, risk mitigate, right? And like I said, when we go to the beginning, how fathers would spend some time with their sons, at some point, there was a time that with industrialization, when men started to go away to work and what's on, they'll come late and all these other things. And then, we saw the increase in divorce rates and all these other things. And we saw increase in men being absent from their homes and and all of that, right? And that has changed, that has changed how men process and execute.
Absolutely.
Right? Process information and compute and execute information, right?
Yeah.
And what happens is that, like with a baby that's like with a baby that maybe like with a child that was not able to develop proper risk assessment, right? Proper risk mitigation, risk management, they would struggle with conflict resolution, right? And then as that child grows up, if there's no that repair, right?
Yep.
The repair of those pieces that were lost, now as they grow up, it's like when they're faced with something, they're like, I don't know what to do. So if they don't know what to do, everything just goes up.
That's right.
Right? Flying, right?
Yeah.
If they're not able to self-regulate, if they're not able to self-soothe, right? If they're not able to, and this is where, suicide rates are high for men, like the piece on impulsivity and being able, and not being able to take a step back and reflect and think. Yeah. Be like, is right? Like, will I be able to work this out, or like what's gonna happen here?
Yeah.
Right? And part of that, and part of that is also like I know you mentioned like the co-regulation piece. Yeah. Right? Like and people need to understand that the way we process information, I know there's this push on self-regulation, but the way we process emotional and social information, it is through co-regulation. We co-regulate each other's. Like it's, you can do so much about pushing someone into self-regulating their own emotions or being able to socially regulate themselves, right? But we naturally co-regulate. Yeah. Right? We co-regulate from when we develop emotions, from when we develop the understanding of social cues. Is this a threat? Is this person mad? Is this person frustrated with me? We learn to process that through co-regulation, right? And if someone is seeking that co-regulation and that co-regulation is not there, that means that person could do anything of the million things that they could do. Yeah. Right. And I think that's what also makes therapy, effective. Right. Right. Is that piece on your therapist and you are co-regulating each other. You are regulating the emotional responses to whatever you're telling them, and they're co-regulating your own emotional responses to what you're going through, because you sit there and you experience what the client is experiencing, right? And it's like one of those things. And I know like this like at its basic level, it's like when a mother is like soothing their child, like, okay, it's safe. Yeah. Right? And what's going on. Yeah. But men are finding it challenging, and I think it's that gap between having men that can that can actually teach them what it is like to be a man, right? And what's that like, outside of like when we say be responsible and accountable. What is that exactly? Yeah. When we say be brave, when we say be courageous, right? When we say face your issues head on, what do we mean by that? Right. Yeah. Well, Elisa, we are so lucky to have you in this community. Well, thank you. I hope you stay. Because we'll have fabulous men in this community. I mean, we already do. Yes. And I can't wait to see more of the Man Up talk. Yes. It's gonna be great on your podcast. Now, if so, you're working through, where do people find you? Like, if somebody wanted to come and see you for counseling or come and see, are you practicing now? Or are you? Yes, I am practicing now. So, I work at Community Council Center of Nipissing. Okay. But that's a publicly funded organization, right. So that's different. Okay. But I work privately for Aura, the psychotherapy center. Aura, so like AURA, like an aura? Oh, okay. Aura, the psychotherapy center. If people are looking for counseling privately, that's where they would find me. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in today. Well, thank you for having me. And this was great. This was a really interesting talk. And this was out of nowhere, but I was like, okay, I'll go and do it, and I think I'm gonna love it. See, you were brave. Thank you. I love it. There's so many things to take away from this podcast. I think one of the things that I really loved was the sense of community that he talked about, the sense of neighbors, and how Elisa was saying
that's me. Like in my community, we were meant to know our neighbors. We were meant to know them and to speak with them and make sure that they were doing okay, and vice versa. And I have to say, where I'm living now, I was going to say this actually in the podcast, but I'll say it now. It was really cool. I have amazing neighbors on both sides. But Paul and Dee, shout out to you guys if you watch this and listen to this. They're amazing. They're awesome. They just moved in about 2 summers ago, I think now. And what really hit me was, we kind of said hello when they moved in. And, I waved to them, said hi, because in Timmins I had a huge community, many blocks of people that I knew all of our neighbors. And anyways, that the first winter they were there, he would snow blow the end of my driveway, and that was awesome. And I made them cookies at Christmas, and so we just kind of started with these like little things, right? Just these like little these little gestures, or just a little conversation when I got home from work. If he was out in his driveway or if he was in his garage, just kind of saying hi, how was your day, or hey, TGIF, what are you up to this weekend? And then what was really cool is they ended up going on a trip, and we had exchanged numbers at one point, and because I was looking at kind of getting some construction done around my place, and so anyways, they were kind of looking at the same thing. So we had our texts, and all of a sudden I get this text from them, and they said, hey, we're heading out on a trip. Would you mind looking after a place for us? Just keep an eye out on stuff. And it just hit me. It just kind of hit me like, what? Like my neighbor is asking me to kind of watch their place and just make sure things are okay. Like they trust me with that. Like they actually, okay. It was something so cool and something that I hadn't experienced since I was really little. And it was really neat. I really like that. And so now every time they go away, they shoot out a text, and I'm like, yeah, of course, I got you guys, no worries. So yeah, there's many things about community that is amazing, and I love that Elisa is in our community. Yeah, what a gem. What a gem. That was awesome. That was a really cool talk. Hey, listen, wherever you listen to your podcast, be it Apple or Spotify, maybe you watch us on YouTube, consider giving us a like or leave us a comment. Maybe you have somebody that you think would be awesome on To North Bay with Love, and you want to highlight them. Maybe they're doing something amazing in the community that we know nothing about. We want to know about it. So shoot us an email, shoot us a text. We'd love it. Hey, you got to go to our website, northbayecho.ca. You can sign up for our newsletter there and check out all the other podcasts that are available. I'm off to feed Raffy Cat. See, here's a neighborly thing. My friend Maureen is going away this weekend, and so I'm going to feed her cat. How fun. Anyway, I'm off to do that. Hopefully the sun's still shining. Until next time, elbows up, Canada. Much love, North Bay.